I'm very, very happy to be here with you today, particularly on this very, very auspicious day, this Krishna Janmashtami, the Krishna of our heart. It's a special day for him and the Sai Krishna that lives with us and lives in us and because of us and for us. And we live for him, because of him, and for him. So I like to say this phrase that Swami used to say, you know, people were always jostling to be close to him. They wanted to be near or nearer or nearest. And he would say, no far, no near, only dear. And so we want to be dear to him and dearer and dearest. So this is our life mission, I believe. So I'm also very honored to be bracketed between Dr. Hari and Brother Alex speaking, because they are very, very great sevaks and people who make things happen in the world of serving fellow humanity. So perhaps Alex will be speaking even on projects that will be coming up. I wish health and happiness to everyone. It's been a very, very crazy time, and I guess in Region 3, you're very, very aware of living on the cusp of nature and ecology and changes and challenges. And so our hearts go out to all of those struggling right now, and for all the ways that we might be able to serve in the future. So I wanted to talk about Krishna. Big surprise. So Krishna and our Sai Krishna is one that made a deep, deep imprint on my heart. And from all of the time that I spent with Swami in the early days, and we were all attracted to that Krishna nature. As a matter of fact, I was trying to put together some photos of Swami that I thought looked like Sai Krishna. And unfortunately, I sort of bungled it. But I think I did send one photo. And maybe you could put that photo up now, because it's probably a little bit more appealing than me. So this photo was taken when Swami was in his early 40s. And to me, this is a picture of Sai Gopala. Unbelievable, you know, early 40s. This person has no wrinkles, no worries, no everything. He's just the baby that's in our hearts. So I know you all have your own photos that perhaps to you mean about Sai Krishna. And this is a day, I suppose, to go and look at those again and to re-imprint them on your hearts. So I like to, talking about Krishna, of course, you have to be thinking about the Gita. And I like this front piece from a book that Dr. A.A. Reddy wrote, and it's a couplet that he dedicated to Swami, and I think very much applies to our Sai Krishna. It says, mind-boggling and awe-inspiring and unparalleled are Baba's miracles. Mind-elevating, mind-eliminating, and self-illuminating are Baba's universal teachings. So I think this is very, very compelling for me. I think the idea that his movements, his activities, his leelas are not only they elevate us, we know that, but they're also mind eliminating. As we become involved in the leelas of Krishna or the leelas of Sai Krishna, our regular mind tends to calm down. It tends to go away. It tends to say, look, this is more interesting. Krishna's life, Swami's life is more interesting than my own. And I think this is a very, very good thing, because otherwise we're always thinking about ourselves. What about this? What about this? I didn't get that. I should have gotten this. You know, so-and-so is doing better than me, and oh, it's not going to work out for me, and all of that stuff. But that's a waste of time. What's the real sweetness to life is living in the Sai Krishna's world. And that world is available to us. And I think one of these things, satsang should be something like this. And again, this is from a translation of the Gita. I like this version very, very much. And it says, with their minds wholly fixed on me, with their lives totally dedicated to me, mutually enlightening one another, and ever speaking of me, they feel contented and delighted indeed. So I think this describes us. This describes how we are. We're mutually enlightening each other. As we do study circles, as we talk about Swami, as we do our service, we're mutually enlightening each other. And you know that sometimes when you see the devotees, you think, wow, those wonderful divine qualities, you can see them. And it's inspiring each of us to do a little better. So when we share stories, we are mutually enlightening each other. So hopefully this continues all the time and grows more and more for each of us. So again, with Sai Krishna, just as with Krishna, you know, Krishna did the Rasa Leela dance with 16,000 devotees. But 16,000 really in those days meant everyone, everyone in Vrindavan and places like that. And really, Sai Krishna as God is doing that Rasa Leela dance with each of us all the time. Sometimes we're way on the outer part of the dance and we forget and we're sort of wandering around and we're sort of a little lost in the forest. And other times we're being whirled around and we sense his presence with us. And those, of course, are the beautiful moments. And different people are feeling the intensity at different times, but sometimes at the same time. And we had that experience with Sai Krishna, in which people would see him in different places, or they would experience him in different ways. And sometimes even literally, they would see him in different places. And so he was everywhere. He is everywhere. He is everything. So Swami is above us, below us, around us, through us, permeating us. It doesn't really get any better than that. So I also wanted to say about having this personal God. You know, when Swami would talk about the Gita, sometimes he would say to people, if you focus on Krishna, if you focus on Swami, he will sing you your own Gita. Gita means song. And this is the song of God. And the song of God is slightly different for each person, depending on where they're at and what they're interested in and the metaphors that move them and the activities that might move them and the aspects of their life that might move them. He's there. He's there already. He's there ready to dance with us, to interact with us. And we are very, very fortunate to have this kind of situation in our life, to be aware of it. Most people aren't aware. They, unfortunately, God is interacting with them, but they don't sense it. So Swami has given us a primer course to understand that God is interacting with us. And we have to take this offer. This is a special offer. And sometimes you see in Hollywood, you know, they're advertising some rajasic violent film, and they might say something like about some fellow getting revenge. This time it's personal. But this time with Swami, this time is personal. You know, in the past, we've had worshipped different gods and temples and books and gurus and whatever. But this time God has personally arrived and personally interacted with us. And we have to not let that go back into the mists of our back recesses of our mind. We have to keep this in the forefront of our mind, because this is what's important. This is what makes life worthwhile. So I'm hoping that each of you will find things in this talk and other talks and any talks that you share, things that can resonate deeply with you so that you feel, yes, I'm here with Swami. Yes, I'm receiving the message of Swami. Yes, I can feel his presence. So with that, let me go on to some other things. I remember some of the things about Krishna Janmashtami. Sometimes Swami would give away bicycles to the disabled, and sometimes he would give away cows to the farmers, which was quite a beautiful scene in Puttaparthi, because you'd see the cows bucking and everyone trying to lead them through Kulwant Hall, and the gratitude of the people and the giving of Krishna himself. It was really very, very moving. But there are other things about Swami. You know, we're always yearning for him, just the way the gopis were yearning for him. We wanted to be with him, so we used to sleep on roofs near him. We used to sleep by his door in Puttaparthi, and sometimes we would even chase him in cars, you know, if he was going someplace. And that was all very, just the most wonderful aspect of duality. There's us and there's God, and we're pursuing to become united with God. We're trying to unite ourselves with God. It's sort of a metaphor. Life was like a metaphor. And everything with Swami is symbolic. So sometimes, one time I was there and I was very casual and sometimes too sloppy. And Swami came out on a very rainy day, and I was on the edge of the pandal. There was a big swatch of mud there. And as he came by, I sort of moved over to try and follow him right in front of me. And so I very carefully picked my feet over the mud. And he looked like, yes, you know, like, yes, this is the way to do it. You avoid the bad and stick with the good. And I remember also seeing him one time. We were in a group interview, and he was at it was at the school in Anantapur. And there was a very, very plain and very inexpensive model of Shiva, sort of a bas-relief of Shiva on the wall. And he had said a few things to different people, and then he was looking off into the sky, and then he looked at this bas-relief of Shiva with just total intensity. It was just totally there, right there at that moment. And so this Swami, even the small things have intensity. Everything is a metaphor for Swami, and so everything is useful for a teaching for Swami. Of course, one of the most famous examples of that is with Dr. Jack Hislop, when he came upon the saris that were wet after Swami had given 96 out of 100 saris to women in Bombay. And Jack saw that there was some moisture on this thing. And so he sort of took some of the moisture and he tasted it, and it was salty like tears. And he told Swami this. And Swami said, yes. So 4 of the saris weren't chosen, and they were crying because of that. But Swami will take care of them. So if he can do that with crying saris, he can certainly do it with us. There's no doubt about that. But along with all of this, there are the qualities in the Gita that he's asking for. And one of them is steadfastness. And you know all of the other good qualities that Swami's asking for. And certainly this is a crazy time, and it's been a very, very challenging time. And it's one that sort of stretched us, and sometimes we felt like this is too much. And this steadfastness is one of the aspects of Krishna and one of the aspects of Swami that he's looking for. And it says so right there in the Gita. And so we should be steadfast as much as we can. And that means that focusing on and not allowing our mind to be pushed aside by all of the craziness in the world. Swami had said, don't be too much in love with this world. You'll find that this world is full of crooks and cranks. Keep your eye on the director. So I think that this is definitely true and definitely the way we should proceed. But along with this, along with all of these teachings, there's an aspect to being with Krishna, being with Sai Krishna. There's an aspect of exile. So in obviously the Ramayana and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's the theme of exile. The devotees and even the Lord himself is sometimes exiled. And there's that distance, there's that duality, there's that separation, and what to do with that separation. And both of those books are about how to best handle that separation. This is important for us because we are in that situation. Sometimes we feel very, very close to Swami. He's just close as oxygen, close as the air. And I had a dream with the founder of some of the Connecticut centers. He was older and we used to look up to him. And I gave a talk about Swami at the University of Connecticut, where I grew up. And so one night, that's the background. And one night I had a dream in which I'm walking through the halls of the University of Connecticut, and there are pictures of Swami everywhere. And so I tell this fellow, this is wonderful. Look, this must be the Department of Religion. And he says, no, this is actually the chemistry department, because Swami is like oxygen for us. This is something, the building block on which our life is founded. This is something that we absolutely need. So that made a big impression on me. And I think it was absolutely true. So something I like to think about when we think about how close Swami is. So sometimes we realize that. And of course, we're very, very happy at those moments. But other moments, we feel like we're in exile. Where is Swami? Where am I? What's going to happen next? How could this have happened? How could this be like this? So we have expectations, and those expectations get in the way. And we should always be doing our duty, doing what we think is best, and trying to sort out what's truthful and what isn't truthful. But at the same time, there's that exile, that sense of, where is the Swami? Where is the Swami? Can I get him back in my heart? Can I capture him? And I remember a time when, this is sort of a physical metaphor of it, in which it had been hard to touch his feet. I can't remember whether this was for everyone in the Darshan area or just for me or whatever. But one time he stopped right in front of me, exactly in front of me. And he was talking to a person next to me and going at it quite a bit. So I thought, this is my lucky day. He's right before me. For sure, I'm able to touch his feet, and there's no problem whatsoever. I've captured him. He is my own right now. I've captured him. He's So I reached down for his feet, and he unexpectedly shifted his feet. He didn't move at all. He was still talking, but he unexpectedly shifted his feet, and I missed. And I missed his feet. And I thought, oh, that was kind of surprising. So I thought, but this time for sure, I'm going to get him because he's still right there. And so I reach for his feet, and again, he shifts, and again, I miss him. And my mind is like totally boggled, like, how could that happen? How could that be? What is this? I said, so I try one more time to grab a hold of his feet, and right in front of me, and still I miss. And as he walks away, I'm sort of shaking my head like, you try and capture Swami. You think you've got him, and he's not always right there. So how do we deal with this exile? How do we deal with all of this problem in which we're trying to figure out what is our situation here? How do we deal with this distance from Swami? Of course, the distance, as I said, no far, no near, only dear. But we forget. And one of the things that sometimes people sort of grit their teeth, and they're very stoic, in which, well, I had that experience then, but I guess I'm not eligible now, or whatever it is we say to ourselves. And we just try and sort of stoic it out. But actually the Stoics, the original Stoics, were this Grecian mystical group that were really quite savvy and actually quite aware of the ancient path. And the reason they were stoic was not because they were gritting their teeth, but it was because they were totally satisfied. They were totally happy. They were totally imbued with that sense of God. And I think that the sloka that most moves me about that sense of God, you know it all, Om Purnamidam. I won't chant it because I would probably mangle the pronunciation, but I do like to refer to it because the general gist is something like this. This is full, that is full. When the full is taken from the full, only the full remains. And I think there's other ways of saying that are legitimate and move me, and I hope they move you too, which is there's only God. And when God is taken away from God, only God remains. And we know one of, another version is, this is infinite, that is infinite. When the infinite is taken from the infinite, only the infinite remains. Or another version, this is consciousness, that is consciousness. When consciousness is taken from consciousness, only consciousness remains. So that's the kind of feeling we should have. Obviously, I'm not only am I preaching to you, but I'm preaching to myself. Like, hey, you say these elevated things, you better live up to it at some point. So we're all doing our best. We're all doing our best to try and make this a 24/7 situation for ourselves. And we wanted to say about consciousness, just getting to the about the science of it. Science can't figure out where consciousness comes from. And so sometimes they think, well, it's a random thing. You get enough molecules and a lightning bolt and the this and the that, and some presto, consciousness happens. But no one's really come even close. And it doesn't really even seem that that formula is going to work at all. And so some of the scientists have come to a conclusion that maybe consciousness predates the material world. There was consciousness before there was the material world. It predates the material world and it postdates the material world. Well, bingo. That's what the ancient path says. And this is what Swami says. And so it's quite a lovely moment when science and spirituality converge. And this thing that, before we had this body and after we have this body, consciousness remains. We have the ups and downs, we have the dualities, we have the zeros and ones, the duality that makes up our simulated computer world. But beyond those dualities, there is a consciousness, a deepness that's with us, that's for us, and with us ever. So let's see, coming to the end of the time here, I wanted to say a few things. One is we have a very high purpose. Our purpose is to know ourselves. It's to know ourselves in everyone and in everything. Being true to ourselves, we've been given a lot. We must make effort. And Swami, one time I like to tell about this story. Swami was scolding a group of us, and a few people had done some mischief and they had gone on their way. But we were getting the scolding. You know how Swami sometimes scolds one person when actually it's meant for the person next to them. This was, I think, one of those times. And Swami, how he starts his talks is like very soft and very kind of slowish, and then it picks up steam, and then it really gets going. Well, this was happening this time. He was saying, when people, he was sort of going on about all of these misdeeds and stuff like that. It was getting more and more intense. And he said, when you act like this, what can I do? And everyone was sort of stunned. Usually it'd say, hey, you're God, you can do whatever you want. And, but it was so compelling. He said it in such a compelling way that the translator changed from the Telugu, says, and Swami switched over to English, says, when you act like this, what can I do? And that translator said, yes, what can he do? Like this poor Swami. So this is what we can do. This is what we can do. We can be true to our purpose. So I thank you for this time together, being together. And I want to wish you all of the best. I hope that everyone is feeling Satya Sai. I hope that you live in Satya Sai and that Satya Sai lives in you, and that people all around us see Satya Sai alive. And I sometimes, one time Dr. Goldstein asked us to tell what why we were involved with Swami or what was most compelling about Swami. And I said, well, it may not be theologically correct. When I think of Swami, I think this is my only chance to get out of this world alive. So anyway, in this troubled time, I ask for Swami's blessings, and I ask in the name of all of us, and I ask in the name of all of your fellow devotees throughout North America and throughout the world, and thanking you, and Jai Sai Ram.